Thank you.
All right. Welcome, everyone. This is the Fairfax County History Commission Confederate Names Committee meeting for Wednesday, August 19th at 2. Our attendee call-in number is 1-408-418-9388, and our event number is 129-820-3970. The web link has been posted on our History Commission website. This is the call to order. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by FOIA and the emergency ordinance, this board needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. It's a bit cumbersome, so I ask you in advance for your patience. The audibility of members' voices. First, because each member of this board is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and at an appropriate volume for all of the other members. Accordingly, I am going to conduct a roll call and ask each board member participating in this meeting to state your name and the location from which you are participating. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear each of your colleagues. Following this roll call, we will vote to establish that every member can hear every other member. The roll call. Ann Stuntz.
You need to unmute yourself.
I'm here. I'm in Vienna, Virginia.
Thank you. Carol Herrick.
I'm here, Carol Herrick, McLean, Virginia.
Thank you. Mary Lipsey.
I'm here in Springfield, Virginia. Mary Lipsey.
Tammy Manarino.
I am calling in from Stanton, Virginia.
Phyllis Walker Ford.
Phyllis Walker Ford, Clifton, Virginia.
Thank you. Greg Wilson.
Greg Wilson, Great Falls.
Okay. And our staff, Denise Dressel.
Denise Dressel, Prince William, Virginia.
Liz Kroll.
Liz Kroll, Alexandria, Virginia.
And Chris Barbashak.
Chris Barbashak, Fairfax, Virginia.
Thank you very much. Attendees, you are welcome, and please understand that you are muted. You're welcome to listen, but this is a listen-only event for you. Thank you. Okay. At this point, I will pass the virtual gavel to the commission chairman, and there you go, so that I may be heard to make the requisite motion, and I need a second. I move that each member's voice may be adequately heard by each other member of this board.
Somebody needs to unmute themselves.
So moved. Mary Lipsey.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Second. Establish that. Whoops. Somebody's unmuted, and here we go. Having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels these emergency procedures. The fact that we are meeting electronically, what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to this meeting. Therefore, I move that the state of emergency caused by COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for this board to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting. And that as such, FOIA's usual procedures, which require the physical assembly of this board and the physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that this board may conduct this meeting electronically through a dedicated telephone line and that the public may access this meeting by WebEx virtual meeting. Need to dispense with FOIA's usual procedures to assure continuity in government continue operations. Finally, it is required that.
Wait, that was a motion.
Yes, we need a second.
Sorry, I do this.
I'll second it, Herrick.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Everybody raise your hand. Thank you.
Aye.
Sorry, I even underlined it here. All right. Now, finally, it is next required that all of the matters addressed on today's agenda must address the state of emergency itself, are necessary for continuity in Fairfax County government, and are statutorily required or necessary to continue operations and the discharge of this board's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. It is so moved. Another,
Second.
thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I have the gavel and we will proceed. It says on the agenda, it says chairman's comments, and I just thank you for this. I try hard to make that part work every time, and every time there's a glitch, but that's the virtual world. I want to take the opportunity just to thank everybody for all that you're doing. I mentioned to Denise that I thought, and I think I said to the committee that we have reached the end of the beginning. And then I asked her, I said, are we at the beginning of the end? And she said, no, we are at the beginning of the middle. It gives us all a sense of where we are. And so again, I appreciate all the work that everyone is doing. It's a challenge. Tammy, I think we have the minutes. Everyone reviewed the minutes that Tammy provided from our July 22nd meeting. I would like to, any corrections? If not, I'd like to have a motion that the minutes be approved.
Mhm. I didn't receive any corrections via email.
Thank you.
I so move, Mary Lipsey.
A second?
I second, Herrick.
Thank you. All in favor of approving the minutes of the July 22nd CNC meeting? Say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Good. Thank you very much. We're going to move right into our discussions. And I appreciate, we've had, I think, 3 or 4 emails. This has to do with, if anybody can see, this has to do with the brochure, the Sesquicentennial Civil War brochure, which I explained in the email. I in looking for other things, came upon and thought about, went through and read it all, and thought that it would be something that we might want to include in the report. I've had extensive discussions with Denise about it. It's a period piece, and the email I sent this morning, Mary said, "Well, yes, it's an artifact. It is. It's interesting. It does demonstrate that the Civil War battles and the Civil War movements and all of this happened all over me, which is a given. It lists in the map graphic places are identified that you will find on the markers and some of the parks. So it connects. There are issues with it, but my point was because it was a official document. Liz was on the Sesquicentennial Committee and she wants to speak to it, but it demonstrates, it shows to the Board of Supervisors, in addition to everything else, this is something that was a county promotion. And yes, it was a promotion because it was a time where it was, what do they call themselves now? Just Fairfax, but it was Visit Fairfax that was pushing it. So I'm interested to know if you all have any more comments and if there is a vote of approval to include this, probably digitally, with the report so that the supervisors, I'm not sure all of them remember it, any of them remember it. But it would be interesting to say this too is part of the way Fairfax County has been presenting its history. So I open the floor, and I guess, Denise, I need to mute so that I don't echo while people speak. So raise your hand if you'd like to say something more than what we've said.
Can I speak? This is Herrick.
Sure.
Hello?
Yes, go, Carol.
I'd like to make a motion that we included in the report we give to the supervisors. I was also on that Civil War committee.
Okay,
Mary seconds.
thank you. Any more discussion from anybody? Yes, Tammy.
I would just say that words that you just used were a great way of introducing it. And will that also be included with, as long as, as well as the brochure, just to kind of give it some context?
That's a good point. We'll make a note. All right.
You know, I do think what's so interesting is it's less than 10 years old. It's so new. We felt very enlightened when it was being put together. It's not, I mean, we just see it with new eyes every year. Mhm.
Mhm.
I think it would be important to indicate that it was a piece that was produced by Visit Fairfax as a heritage tourism piece. There are a couple of things in there that I would prefer weren't, but I can live with it.
Okay.
Absolutely agree with you, Liz. It's a crazy marketing piece, but it has a lot of good history in it.
And I think more than anything, the point I'm saying that it offers a perspective. So, yeah. Any other, I appreciate your comments and have made note, Tammy, of what you said. And the narrative sections of the report that Denise will be are very important. And that's another whole section that as Denise moves along, we need to talk about. So anything else? If not, may I call the vote? All those in favor of including the brochure, most probably digitally, with our report, say yay.
Yay!
Yay. Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay, thank you very much. That was good. The second, I have to check my agenda here. The second is the Confederate names short list. I'm turning this over to Denise. Bless Denise, she has her staff report, and I broke it into pieces to fit into our discussions. And so what she said she wanted to talk about, excuse me, is the summary of methodology to produce the list from 1,700 plus Confederate names. I call that the master list that Greg developed, reduced to 645 names and then filtered again. So Denise, the floor is yours to talk about it, and it is in draft form, correct?
Yes. Thank you, Barbara. So just a word on methodology, and I believe I went over this at the History Commission meeting, but I wanted to go over it again with this smaller group, how we got to this list. So the Confederate Names Committee produced a list of over 1,500 names. I think it was actually over 1,700 names. And then what Matt did is he removed the duplicate names from that list. For instance, if there were 5 individuals with the last name Lee, only one Lee name was included in the list for filtering. So whether there were individuals or not, we just needed the name Lee represented. So then that reduced the list to about 650, and those names were used to filter against the list of names that the county provided. So that's the streets and the subdivisions and all the things that you all have seen. And these results were called again to remove the obvious non-matches. And that is the section that's highlighted in red at the bottom of all of the lists that you see, specifically the subdivisions and the street names, because there were a lot of, let's call them erroneous matches, but that's the way the filter worked. So I wanted to point out that all lists are inherently problematic because of the probability of omission, especially talking about, Confederate names of individuals. So staff, I wanted to point out that on the short list there, we included the name Cabell, Cabell. However, we found that that name had not been included on the original list. So you're not going to find it sorted for. So if that's a name that that you well is probably in your list, that's something that you need to be looking for. The other thing that we found, that the other name that's missing from the original list was Van Doren, which is really big. That's a really big one in I think Lee District at least. Yeah. So my recommendation is, if you find a name that's missing and you're confident that was a Confederate name, please include it in your survey and fill out a research template for it. Off the top of my head, Van Doren certainly should be included. So that's my little summary of the methodology.
All right. I would add, I would also add one that Mary found, and she didn't even know where the marker came from. It's on the historic marker database, and that is Pender, which those of us that live in this part of the county know Pender. And there it is. And he was a general, and he was at Ox Hill. So, and somehow miss, and I don't think it's not, the Civil War Trails does not include him. Is that correct, Mary?
That is correct, and I think partly he missed our list because he has no real connection to Fairfax County, except he was here during that fight. And that's what I'm finding with my Ravensworth community too, which I will put a template for them, but they have no Fairfax County connection.
Okay.
He has, Pender has that inset in that Pender Shopping Center marker, doesn't he?
Yeah, and there's a Pender Drive, and there's a Pender View, and there's another street with Pender in it also.
There's a Pender Veterinarian Clinic also.
I have a question.
Are we including veterinarian clinics?
No, but when I go to get down on 50 to come to History Commission meetings, I always drive by that
Oh, I
building.
do, yes.
I have a question for Denise. In doing Braddock District, we must have 10 or different streets, all with Burke in them, which we assume are named for Silas Burke, but his son, John T. Burke, was a Confederate. My question is, do we need to make a separate template for each and every one of those? Because they would read all the same.
So this sort of, if I may, Barbara, I'm gonna talk now about the directions, the instructions.
They're next anyway. I don't know, you wanted to have first you wanted to have a vote originally, so that's why it was separate.
Okay.
So if we can do that, and then we would move, then the next was to move into the instructions, because it connects. Is that agreeable? All right. I would like a motion, please, if they're, for accepting the Confederate names, what we're calling the short list.
So move, Mary.
Thank you. I need a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any more discussion on this?
So we'll get in.
On this specific. If not, Tammy, yes, please.
We'll get into this in the next segment. But again, it's use of this short list for a particular part of the project. This isn't all we're looking for. I think that's important to state in the motion, that for the purposes of what we want this for is what we're voting on it for.
Right.
Right.
It's
Right.
the term priority, the priority that Denise has talked about, that we must have a priority because of the time, the tight time. So Tammy, yes, please.
So my was, like, you identified 3 examples of things that somehow didn't make our filtering, which was Cabell, Van Dorn, and Pender. Are those on the short list, the most recent?
Cabell is, but Pender is not, and Van Dorn is not. But I
I think it would
presume
be
we could
great if we
add it.
added those.
Denise, can we add them to your table?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And actually, I would like to have that discussion. This is not a definitive list. And if you all think, if you know a name, I mean, Pender is everywhere in that region, right? In around
Yes.
West Docks. So if there's a name that's missing from the short list, please identify it and we can add it for sure.
Yes.
So this
I
is a
haven't looked
living
at the
list.
recently.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Is Beauregard on the list?
Here.
Yes, yes, he is.
Okay, all right.
Yes. I also wanted to note before we vote, there are Confederate associated terms, and I know that Cheryl, working in Sully, has come across this. One of the earliest ones was Confederacy Ridge. So this list includes Confederate, Confederacy, Rebel, Reb, Dixie, Copperhead, Southern Cross, Traveler, Stonewall, Klan, and there may be more. So this was saying, although it's not the name, it's obviously a reference to the CSA, the Confederates. So that's part of this as well. Yeah, it's a living document, and it's an effort to again allow people to work with what Tammy talked about the very first time, which was the low hanging fruit, the most well recognized, widely recognized names. But certainly, if you know of others and you have the time, then please respond and make good use of them. Further questions or comments or discussions? All right, all in favor of accepting the Confederate names short list, wave your hand
Aye.
or
Aye.
say aye.
Sure. Aye.
Thank you. All right. Now, Denise, if it's all right with you, we'll go into the Confederate Names Project instructions.
Okay. Yes,
Okay.
so if I may talk a little bit about the share file folder that everybody received, and then maybe segue to the instructions from
All right.
there. Okay.
Certainly.
Because I think they dovetail. So you all would have received an email over the weekend. I created a share file folder for the project. It enabled access for everyone on the commission. And if you didn't receive an email from me, please let me know and I'll get you. There are ways to work around these. Some people have difficulty accessing share file, and I can help you access the folders. In that file folder, the Confederate Names file folder, there are separate files for each magisterial district, which contain the filtered lists of named county places and things. There's also a file called Project Admin Documents, which contains a file folder with following research tools provided by the Virginia Room: the 1760 Fairfax County Map Index, the 1860 Fairfax County Map Index, the Edith Sprouse 1860 Map Index book, which has just a ton of information about Fairfax County names, the BOS minute books from 1924 to 1980. And right here, I'm gonna pause if you will allow me, and maybe let Chris speak to some of these resources that he's provided me to provide the History Commission for their research, and then also let him talk about the resources that are available through the Virginia Room, since he will be working with us officially now.
Chris.
Yeah. So yeah, as Denise mentioned, those resources are all digitally available. The BOS minute books are really helpful for figuring out when certain subdivisions or when street names were named. All of those things that are in that project document share file, they're all helpful for writing up the history of the asset, the documents you guys are working on. Other things also, in addition to that, the Sprouse book is amazing because that's a list of, it's almost like a biographical inventory of everybody who was living in the county in 1860. So that's incredibly helpful. Other things that aren't on there that I have found with helping some of you with your research requests, the Washington Post and the Washington Evening Star newspaper databases are probably the top two databases that are most helpful. I mean, you can really find a lot in there for compiling that history of the asset part of the document. And then one other thing that I haven't sent to Denise yet, I know Tammy has this. It's it's called the Fairfax County Old New Street Name Lists. It's maybe it's like a page PDF, but in 1963, the BOS adopted this ordinance to create a uniform numbering system in the county because streets were all over the place. There wasn't a common numbering system. So that document lists a bunch of street names that were renamed or names that were discontinued in 1965. So I'll send that to Denise and she could put that in there. But those are the top databases and resources that can really help with that history part.
I have a question, and that is, I know I get into the Washington Post all the time, but tell us about the Evening Star.
So the Evening Star is not a database that Fairfax County Public Library provides. You have to have a DC Public Library card to get it. So if there's any street names or any kind of neighborhood or anything you're looking for, just shoot me an email and I can search it for you.
Or we borrow a friend's card. Is that legal? Or does Arlington have it? I can't remember.
DC, just DC Public.
Only DC.
Only DC, yeah.
Too bad.
But it's worth it. It's worth a DC Public Library card just for that. Because I found that the Evening Star definitely did a lot better job than the Post did when it comes to covering local news.
They're fantastic. Yes.
Can we apply for a DC Public Library card?
You can, if you live in Northern Virginia or if you live in the Maryland counties close to DC, you can get it.
We don't
I'm going to get one.
So we Fairfax County people can really do it.
You can really do it.
Ooh, thank you.
Mary?
I have a question because we did our database of the Civil War soldiers and where they're buried. We used the special census of the Confederates. I think it's 1898. I can't remember now where we got that information. There was a special census that was made of Fairfax County Confederates living in the county in 1890 or 1898.
Huh.
I'm not familiar with that one. I'll have to look that one up.
Okay, it may be that Page Johnson uses it because he refers to it all the time in his book. And if I can find an example, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Mary, this is Greg. Are you by chance referring? There was a 1890 veterans federal schedule in the federal census.
Right.
Is that what you're referring to?
That's what started out, and the federal government then all of a sudden realized that they intended for just Union to reply, and they had all these Confederates reply.
Right.
So that's when the state of Virginia stepped in.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm not familiar with the Virginia one.
Okay. I will find an example here in my book, and before the end of the meeting, I'll tell you what it says.
Okay. Denise, I have a question to ask Denise, and that is, are we going to talk with Chris about how to access his services and those of the Virginia room? As you all know, at what point can he help? Can he help with the templates themselves, or this is the process? I don't know if we're the specifics, like if you need Chris's help, how do we go about that so he isn't totally inundated with requests? And I've already identified that Phyllis down in Lee District is the Lone Ranger down there, and so she's going to need probably some serious help, and so that's why I'm bringing this up.
Sure. Okay, I'm not echoing. Yes, so well, let me first say, although I said Chris is officially with us now, let me just say that Chris is officially with us now at the request of the History Commission. The research librarians from the Virginia Room, Chris Barbershek and Suzanne LaPierre, have been assigned to assist the History Commission with the Confederate Names Inventory Project. So Chris and Suzanne are available. However, Chris is acting as the point person for the Virginia Room, so he will be making the assignments to Suzanne, and Suzanne will be helping him, assisting him. And then, if you're having difficulty or need research help, let Barbara or I know so that we can get you to Chris, because we are going to, as Barbara just said, Chris and Suzanne are going to be working on the Lee District names in support of Phyllis, and on the Springfield District names. So they already have 2 whole districts that they're going to be focusing on, which is why we're trying to provide you all with as many tools for your own research as we can. So that's why I've dropped all of that information into that share file folder, so you have those resources. And then I'm going to ask Chris to provide me with a link to the, I'm assuming that the Washington Post is digitized someplace online, so I'll get that out to you. Or Chris can do it. Chris can email the committee or the commission as a whole and get that information out to you. So you all can do the research that you can do, and then if you get stumped on something, Chris can help. But if you could just let Barbara and I know, so we're just making sure that they're not swamped with requests, just like we did at the beginning when we were sort of controlling what was going to the Heather Bollinger and the Virginia Room at the beginning. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Denise, and thank you, Chris. Any more questions concerning the instructions?
Hey, Barbara.
Yes, Greg.
So there's a free resource, Library of Congress, Chris probably knows this, Chronicling America, that has digitalized newspapers. I believe I'm correct in saying that they have the certainly the old Evening Star, and I believe Washington Post, going way back. And folks may want to check there if they want a free, easy resource.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Chris, do you want to say anything about that, or you must know that resource?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's fantastic. I don't think the Post is on there. The Evening Star is on there. I think only until like 1912 or something like that. But it's the Evening Star from like the 50s and 60s. That's when a lot of these streets are being renamed and Confederate names are really being used. That's when that DC Public Library database really comes in handy.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Do you think it would be possible for you to put together just an email with a list of resources that digitally would be helpful, that are accessible to everybody?
Sure, definitely, I could do that.
Even a reference to how you apply for a DC Public Library card would be great.
I can do that.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay. Mary, yes. I have to unmute Mary. Unmute Mary. Well, she can't hear me.
There we go. Sorry. All right. For example, Richard P. Buckner, according to Paige Johnson, is on the list of ex-Confederates living in Fairfax County circa 1898. That's from Paige Johnson's brother and cousin's book. So,
Mary?
Yes.
I just found a thing at the Alexandria Library Special Collections. I'm about to send a link to you and a few of you to see if that's what you're talking about. It's a 13-page document from 1890 census.
Well, that's when the government asked the Union guys in 1890, and because they were going to start the pensions for them.
And
So
it's
they
a
were sending the Confederates. Yeah.
It's a mixture of Southern and Northern and Alexandria Falls Church, Fairfax, Fauquier.
Okay.
It's everything.
And this is Carol. Would you send that to me also?
Well,
please?
let's make sure it's what, I'll send it to you, but we'll also find out if that's specifically what we're looking for. Yeah, I'll do that right now.
Okay, and the other thing is the Washington Post is available in the library. If you have your Fairfax County Library card.
Yeah.
I use it all the time.
Yeah, me
I
too.
was looking at Chris saying, why didn't you say that, Chris? Are we still doing instructions? Because I had the question about my multiple streets named Burke.
Yes, we are, Mary. I haven't quite finished it.
Yeah,
Okay,
she's,
all
yeah,
right.
we just sort of went off. I'm just,
Okay,
back to you, Denise
Okay.
and Chris. Go.
Okay, so the other folder that is in that share file folder is an administrative folder with documents. Besides for the research information that has been provided by the Virginia Room and your lists by district, there is a project administrative folder, and that has the board matter, the brochure that we just discussed and voted on today, the Excel file with the spreadsheets containing all the Confederate names that was provided by the CNC, the list of Confederate names that we used as the filter. So I just created a Word document and put them into columns. You'll see them. So you'll see the 645, 9, something like that names. They're not numbered, but they're all there. A blank template. So if you're looking for templates, it's in that folder, both in PDF and Word version. And then the shortened list that we just agreed on for Confederate names. However, I did not, Pender and Van Doren are not on there. So I will add those two onto that shortened list. And then finally are the project instructions. And that was something that we realized, oh, I know, Mary had an inquiry from a member of the public who's going to be helping us with the Providence district. And so we had to sort of get her up to speed and give her instructions on how to go about researching. And I realized through that conversation that, providing instructions to everybody would be a good idea. So that's when I drafted those instructions and then worked through them with Barbara and Ann last Friday to get just a short one-pager how we should approach the research, how you all should be approaching the research. And of course, these are just suggestions, but it seems like it was a good way of a primer to tell somebody what we're doing and how to go about doing it. So, and I have them right here. If you can, I have many things open on my desktop right now. Just a moment. But well, I'll tell you what, they were sent out. Anne sent them out to the committee of the whole, and Barbara had sent them out to this smaller group here before, so I don't go over them. Were there any questions about them? And I know Mary does have a question. So did you have an opportunity to look at the instructions, Mary?
yes, and
Okay.
but the thing, I guess it's just a simple yes or no. If we have multiple streets, all in Burke, I mean, 10, 15, probably named for Silas, but maybe for his son, do we need a template for each one that says this relatively the same thing?
So I would think, and please others weigh in on this, but I would think that Burke, if you don't have a first name and you don't have a specific association with a specific individual, for instance, Silas Burke, then I would think that would count as a family name. And in your notes column, you would just simply write family name.
Okay.
And that would be it. So you wouldn't be completing a template unless you know that there is a specific Confederate linkage, association.
Okay. Then my other question is, and Barbara and I discussed this, is that we have names, let's say, for Simpson, and there are about 4 Simpsons that could possibly be there. And so my thought was in the notes section to put most likely the person is named after in the regular template, but the notes section say possibly this Confederate. Is that okay?
Yeah, I think that's a perfectly reasonable approach.
I keep saying things like, no, I mean, I don't know how regularized we want to get to saying the same things like it's a geographic description, but On the names, I've been doing like, I don't know, I've been doing different ones. No obvious reason to connect to the Confederate Wade, for example. No, I mean, because it's all over the place. We all are running into the same name over and over with no specific. Do you want for family names that we're very familiar with, Denise, we could write you a paragraph at some point, just so you're aware that, yes, this is a family name. They had a farm here or a graveyard there. And yes, there was a family member in the Confederacy, but that's the end. I mean, do you want a little bit like that, or are you going to rely on the big lists of family names?
Right. So I actually think that Carol might be able to speak to it. I think that has been Carol's approach, is to provide some history on the family and the family connection. So
in what format? Like a template per each family name, or not even?
Well, I think if you have, again, if you have a family name that is all over your region, then one reference that says, see Ball or see Shreve, or yeah. So I think that's enough. Okay. Carol, are you with us? Okay, yeah.
I sort of redid everything. We were doing Shreve Road, since you're familiar with that one. I did a separate template for Shreve Road, the Shreve Elementary School, the Shreve Village something or other, and the Shreve this, and I have 4 Shreves.
But the research is the same, so what you have is 4 geographic locations,
I
right?
basically just keep the research and do the same research in each template, and just to tweak it to fit the template. But that was my understanding, that was the way we were supposed to. Anyway, that's the way I did it.
So that's good. It almost doesn't matter how Denise gets the information, just so you have it, so you can slot it in somewhere in the report. You have the list from 1760, the list from 1860, but you'll have that as a reference. But then we'll have all these very specific names that things are named after. Okay, just so somewhere we write it up. Either we do you a template and say this is a family name template, or we give you a report summarizing all the family names in our district, something like that.
I can tell you what I just did for Mount Vernon District is that I've been typing directly into the filtered lists that we got from Matt. And so there's a name Wiley that's associated with Lorton, Virginia. And so it looks like it's named after the family, but he has a significant enough history that I thought it was worth. So I just typed it directly in there. So it makes it a very long entry in Matt's list. And then anything that had a Confederate connection, I highlighted yellow. So under Wiley, it'll say like, yes, there was Private Wiley in the Confederacy, and he later went on to serve 24 years as the Fairfax County treasurer, and his family owned this land. And so it's like a paragraph that's in there, and it's highlighted yellow. And that was going to be one of my questions today is, it really is named for his family. Do I need to do a template, or is that highlighted yellow within my list just fine?
Right. So the only thing that I would say is that we need to know where the resource is. So, for instance, if it's a street name, then it's a linear feature, and it's going to be hard to tell me exactly where it is. But at least the district, Mount Vernon there. But let's say it's a subdivision, or what's another thing that you're running across with Wiley?
Well, and that is, I actually have put those clues in that language. Like I'll say, this is a subdivision off of Route 1 in Lorton, Virginia. Or this is a street that intersects with, X. So I put that little hint in and I didn't know whether later on I was going to go back and make that into a template. So
the information that's on the template is sort of identifying information, right? So if we want to go back and look at that resource, I need to know where it is, which is why we created that template. So we had standardized information for things that we know are Confederately named. So if you have a Confederate association, I would ask you to, yes, go ahead and create a template for that resource. But if you think it's just generally named for the family, I think family name isn't to, because we can't make that Confederate association, we can't make that connection.
So that's where you would recommend
It's a family name, yeah.
That's where you'd recommend that the list, the last column on the list, say whatever you know, C. Wiley, maybe a bit of background, and then C. Wiley, and then somewhere else you'll have a whole a paragraph on Wiley.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And then of course your sources, if you're linking it to the Confederacy, then I think a source is essential.
Yeah.
I guess I'm doing it a little differently. I'm doing a template for everything.
That's okay.
So you're not going to get you're going to get 100 templates, 200 templates, whatever it comes out to.
Well,
Okay.
I will speak to that. We have to remember that all of this, the lists and the templates are a way of getting the information to Denise. The templates have to transition for Denise into the format, the digital format that she has to create. And that's why it's important. I'm going to use Greg's, we talked about Stewart Ridge, and it's out by Drainsville, and the Battle of Drainsville was there, and Jeb Stewart was at the battle. And so the source can be, and Greg, forgive me if I can't remember what you listed as the source, but the source can be the battle report. It can be the state marker on Route 7, I think, references that Stewart was there. You can reference that General Jeb Stewart was at the Battle of Drainsville, and that is most probably why it's named Stewart Ridge. You can't guarantee it, but it gives you a sense. Now, Denise, is that sufficient in that instance? I mean, that's a well-known name, and we're saying
Right.
and at that location is named Stewart. It is most probably named for Jeb Stewart because it is in the environs of Drainsville where the Battle of Drainsville took place.
I would call that sufficient.
Okay.
Yeah, that is one of those funny ones. I have a really dumb problem, and you might want to take this offline because it's so dumb, it's embarrassing.
Don't talk about it.
But on the other hand, if anybody else had this problem, I would like to think I'm making your life easier by being the one who raised it. And that is, this darn list for, say, Hunter Mill Civic Associations, the way my Word prints it out, I can't even do what Tammy does and put in a paragraph. All my words disappear. Help! I don't know what it is. I get to the end of the line and actually everything I type is gone.
I think you need to expand your cells.
That's what I did. I'll work on it some more. It is a table, correct?
But when you type on the list, if you keep typing, it gets larger.
Well, that would be that would be my normal experience with my tables. But this is Denise's table. And I'm like, darn it, Denise.
In Word, the Word one?
I will play with it a little more, and then I will throw
I can tell you how to do it.
Oh.
Email
Some of them, when you type in, it will automatically expand.
Okay.
So, but the other one is if you click on the line below and then just drag it down, it will expand it. So, but some of them do it automatically and some of them don't.
Okay.
I've sat here, I've Googled it, I've helped it, and all I am is cursing. So,
Well,
It's the same method for Excel. If you use Excel and you make the cells bigger, you just you hover your cursor over the line, as Tammy said, and when it becomes 2 double lines,
You
use
move.
it to drag it down.
okay.
All right, I'm one of the few things I was able to do on the weekend. Anne was busy with the wedding and you were busy with your big report, so I played with my list.
Oh,
And on
you did.
Hunter Mill, I listed it all. It was Hunter's Mill, and I listed when he became the miller, and that was it. And that's why it's named that. Lots of things happened on Hunter Mill Road, but it's named Hunter Mill because of Hunter's Mill, right off of Difficult Run is where it was located. And that's what I did, period. That's what it's named for. It's like Browns Mill Road, yes, but Browns Mill Road is because he had a farm in the mill there. And so it's called Browns Mill. These are part of the family names. And then there's Brown's Cemetery. That's a different part of but this is, the land was given to the Brown family in 1879 for the cemetery and the church. The chapel is now moved to Reston, but I know that. And so that was my explanation and I let it go. Now, is that all right, Denise, or is that not all right?
Well, since it's not Confederate, you've done above and beyond the requirement.
There are indeed
Just
lots
on the
of,
list. It's not on a template. It's on the list, and that's as far as I got.
there are, oodles of Hunter's Wood, Square, Green, Crossing, Crest, Forest.
All of you got my.
Yeah,
This is only people in Hunter Mill, which
Yeah.
means you and me here, but you have the statement about Reston streets, and all of the hunter out there deals with hunting,
well,
period.
yes,
Done.
yes. And then all the other,
So that's, if it's
all
in
the
Reston,
other-
it's off.
there's a ton of Hunter that's not in Reston, but it's the same story. It's named
That's right.
after the hunters
That's
of
it.
Hunter Mill.
Just the
There-
hunters of,
It's
Okay.
it's the same story, yes, they're Confederate hunters. And yes, they might be related, but that's not what we're looking for.
well, this leads into, Denise, and Chris, if I could say, one of the issues that we talked about and tried to put in here, the family names. They're going to be I'm not sure how Denise will design it, but it has to be a separate place because, Leesburg Pike is it's the turnpike that takes you to Leesburg. Lee has been here early 18th century, maybe 17th century, some of them. I mean, they're families that have been here forever. And so many of the places are named for the family, and we need to note that. A member of the family that was living here 1861 to 65, most probably, if they fought, were on the Confederate side, but that does not mean, that the name only refers to that particular individual. It refers to the family that has been in residence for over 100 years, usually. So that's something so that's something that we need to. Gunnell is another one. The earliest record we have of him is 1760. So that's something we have to somehow put in a separate basket, right, Denise?
Right, yes. I've noted that in the instructions that they're going to be, I mean, I think that this is the way that we need to approach it. And this came out of conversations. I think Phyllis brought up the fact that she looked at the list and immediately knew that 2 of her relatives were on there, right? So that's clearly a family name, and that's what needs to be noted. And then Carol had brought it up, and many people have brought we're running into Fairfax County has had, Lees living in the county since the inception of the county.
Right.
So, what do we do with that? Virginia was a Confederate state, and if you had a son, you sent him, and that doesn't mean that the names of the things were named after Confederacy or Confederate association. It means that the names of the things were named after the family. And that's what that is. That's a family name. Unless we see for instance, and I know, Barbara, the name has been changed, but the Robert E. Lee Rec Center. That was, I mean, there's no doubt about it. It was Robert E. Lee, and that's who they were naming that rec center after. And the name has since been changed. So we absolutely have a Confederate association here. But I think, as Chris wrote in that wonderful report that he did on the Lee district, it's a family name, and that we have many in the county that are just going to be like that. So, which is why we've provided you the index to both the 1760 map and the 1860 map. You can just double check that and reference it. And if it's a family name, unless you have a specific association to a specific person that you served in the Confederacy, I think that we need to treat it as a family name.
Okay.
Denise, I'd like to
Yes.
suggest another source, which is where I ran across, I'm finding out, how that street is named. The hmdb.org, historical marker
Yes.
database.org. As I was going through markers, I saw MACHN. I don't know how you pronounce it. MACHEN, and Monument Drive. There's lots of markers there. And then I realized he's one of the Confederates on our list. And so if you're looking to see a street name and you say, well, I don't know if it has a Confederate, you might just search in that, because that gives the location of the monuments or markers in the county with the street names.
Fantastic. And it also gives the history too, the
Yes.
Confederate connection. So
Yes.
that's a great resource. Thank you, Mary.
So are people, is this helping or does it make it more confused? We're trying, it's not a straight line project, which is why the effort to provide instructions for everyone. And we also have to remember that the full commission, the COW, not all of them are as involved in the actual research as those of us here. I know Cheryl is, but it's important that we somehow communicate, because they're obviously going to have to be involved as well. So,
And I think one of the hardest parts, not the hardest, but a hard part is the priority aspect of it. Knock off the short list, but then tackle the rest. The short list is just to make sure the obvious names that we would be embarrassed to miss are dealt with. But clearly it's just Barbara did the math. It's less than 10% of the big list. And so it really is just it's so, I think it's clear the way this has turned out. Really look at the shortened list, address them, and then if it's now, then you do have time to go on and hit the rest of the Matt Knox sorted list, right? I mean, that's
well, and you go all the way back. I call yours the master list, because that's what we started with.
yes.
And even that, I don't know if it had Van Dorn on it or not. I'd never see. So, I mean, it was a masterful effort, if you'll pardon the pun, but there's no way to have absolutely 100% guarantee on that. And obviously this report, as Denise said, we are giving it our best effort. We are volunteers. We are, focused, energetic, passionate about it, but we have a time frame that's about this big and this much work to do. And not everyone on the commission. I think of Greg, who is still doing professional things. I think of Jordan, has explained to me that he's trying to generate enough in donations, contributions to keep his staff working. I mean, he has major issues with the Holocaust Museum. So the question of the time is tight. And Phyllis is, as I said, by herself down in Lee District. So that's what I'm saying is everyone does their best. The most important thing I would think is the quality of your entry. If you get 10 that are well documented, and you can say the source of your information and you can identify if it's family or not, that's better than 15 or 20 that don't have all the information, because Denise she has to take, something comes to her typed up, forwarded digitally, and she takes it and has to adjust it and put it into the format. I'm trying to, right, Denise?
Yes, exactly. And yes, I was thinking about that. So just know that it feels like we're being rigid here in the formatting and the list, the short names and the priorities and all. It does feel a bit rigid, but it's only to focus. That's all we're trying to do is focus. And I will take whatever you give me. And we also know that there's going to be a huge set that are just ambiguous. We are just not going to know whether this was, named for a Confederate. We just will not know. So that will be reported. We have this, out of 17,000 street names, we have 3,000 that we can't possibly ever know whether there's a Confederate association here or not. And that will be said. But we know, I don't know. I would like to do the research. We know that Van Doren is named after General, whoever it was, the Confederate Van Doren. But we need that source. We need that connection to say, yes, for sure. Unless there was a person living in that district that was named Van Doren. I don't know. And that's where you all come in. So the lists and the priority lists and the templates, and I know it feels rigid, and that's not the intention. The intention is just to take an enormity of data, get it to a manageable size, and then get it to focus the research to make sure that we're hitting that low-hanging fruit and those priority names. And that's what this whole effort is about.
Right. Denise has also said to me, she said, we have to produce the report the Board of Supervisors want, not necessarily what we as historians and researchers would do on our own.
Well, and if you think about it, if the if the supervisors were to decide, I know you hate me getting ahead of myself, but I like to think what this is going to be used for. If they were to decide to handle it the way Alexandria does, and let individuals just go through whatever the process that exists for renaming streets, well, then this would be a document that a neighborhood or a homeowner could say, gee, I wonder if I live on a Confederate street. And they could go look at this report and they could say, either they'll come away saying, oh, it really is. They found a newspaper article or a report from the developer or they'll say, they never did figure it out. I guess that will lead to further research. But, since we're not going to get to the bottom of most of these, like you say, we've got to try to hit the obvious ones. But I think it's going to be if we end up with a document that is a stepping off point for additional research, that's pretty good too.
Other comments?
I had a couple things that I ran into while I was doing the research. So on the instruction sheet, it lists libraries on there as one of the 10, I think it's 10 things, but I don't think I saw a filtered list of libraries. Do we have that, or are we on our own to figure that one out?
So there are a few names of resources, and libraries is one of them, where there weren't libraries in every district that met the filter. So right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you may not have every single one of those things that are listed.
Okay. All right. And then the other thing that I ran into was the hydro report. I'll be honest, like when I pulled it up, I was expecting to see like Dogue Creek, Little Hunting Creek, and all I have is like a name called Mill. And I was like, I don't know Mill Creek and I don't even know where to look for that. Like, so I couldn't really, I don't know what I can do with the hydro list. I don't know. Like the things I was expecting to see on there are not there. And the names that are on there, I'm like, I have never heard of that.
Right, right. So I can go back and make sure that, Tammy, that you have the appropriate list. But I would say to you that the list that was handed to us was like that as well. It was sort of vague in right, that we received to do the sort by. So I know what you're saying. However, Dogue would have definitely not been on your list, right? It would have dropped off. It wouldn't have been a match.
No. And so like Dogue Creek would not have been on there, but like, so I don't even know if this thing is called Mill Stream or
What
like
is
Tall
it?
Spring wasn't on there. Like, is it a street? Is it a lake? Is it a creek? Is it I don't even know what
Just
to search on when I go to research it.
Right. I know, and I understand that was a weird list when we received it. And so it had the name. So for instance, Bill, but then below it separately, it would say run or creek. So you couldn't associate what it was. We just got a list of words.
Oh,
Yeah, it was different from the other list.
It was different, right? Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I will say I spent a whole night going through the wonderful atlas, the map atlas of Northern Virginia. So I can swear that Johnny Moore Creek is pre-Civil War because there it's listed, and ditto for Blackbird's Ford. So, bravo. I was so excited because, I mean, you know that, but you can say, okay, I could reference this map right here, and it's the name is there, and the war hasn't happened. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Small
really
victories,
good.
right? So other questions, and please, if you have them as you're going along, please send your questions. I talk to people, I email with people, and I try to copy everybody that would be interested in that particular aspect, and also always Denise. And I try to remember Liz when I feel that she would need to know, because I know everyone's very busy, but that's important. And I think Chris we'll get to you through Denise or through me, and that's what we've agreed to. And Phyllis is at your door, and she's the first one, okay? And Phyllis, could I ask somebody down there, either Carl, Sel, or Don, told you about Van Dorn?
Don and Carl mentioned Van Dorn only to say that it was Confederate, but no information. So we're just going to research it. I went through the list of streets that are on the Lee District list, and I started with actual people's names that are complete names. So that's 7. Some of those I know are community names. The only one right now that looks like Confederate, of course, is Robert E. Lee Plaza or Place. So I'm going to go back through that. And then we're adding Taliaferro and Van Dorn to the list. So I think we've cut the list down pretty good. And I know the old family names that were in existence in the 1800s, so we can check those. So I'm feeling better about it, and I did talk to Chris earlier today, so we know where we are.
I worked, that phone conference was 3 hours, and so we really worked hard to try and make the instructions something that was feasible and that would be understandable. So if we're finished with that, and I think we've talked about the family names, it's in the research librarian assignments. Denise, you were going to give an update on the ARB, and you've already talked about the share file. So
Yes.
the ARB response, you were going to let
Yes.
everybody know.
So a letter was sent. Oh, I just lost my report. Sorry. Here we go. A letter was sent to the ARB requesting their support and involvement in formulating guidelines for the renaming process. And this came out of the board matter. It was a specific thing that the board requested that the History Commission work with the ARB specifically and other relevant boards, authorities, and commissions. The ARB chair responded, John Burns, with some informal thoughts, just an email. And staff went to the ARB meeting and updated them with the progress that the commission has made in compiling the Confederate names inventory. And then we also requested a formal response from the ARB members by the October 7th History Commission meeting. So all of the ARB members, the letter went to the whole board, and they will all be replying. And during my report, Chris Daniel, who works for the Advisory Council of Historic Preservation, he chimed in and said that the Advisory Council has actually put out guidance for dealing with monuments of, I've forgotten what it's called, but these sorts of things. So we've already gone out and downloaded that PDF, and that's been included in the file that I'm keeping on the different preservation organizations for guidance. Yeah, which includes the National Trust, which the History Commission voted to adopt at their last meeting. So.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
The next is updates, and I want to let you know, I hope I reached somebody in every district, and so I'll share what I know, and then would look forward to having each of you talk about where you are or what you know about your district. In Braddock, Mary, having finished the markers, except for the few union that she will find, as she mentions Claire Barton, but I don't know what else. Anyway, Mary is working, and she has a research partner that's working with her. So that's Braddock. Drainsville, we have Carol and we have Greg. And Carol, as I understand, you essentially are finished with the streets, and Carol has also taken on Herndon because, as you know, we have Clifton, Vienna, and Herndon.
Well, Herndon's in the Drainsville district.
Pardon me?
Herndon's in the Drainsville district.
I know it is, but it was listed as the town, but the town itself is not available to help. So Carol is doing that, and what Carol and Greg work together is fine, but that one seems to be covered. Hunter Mill is Ann, Elise, and yours truly. I'm not sure again what I can do. But Elise, I sent her the information. She said she would attempt to do some work, but I haven't heard from her since. So it comes down to Ann at this point. So Lee District, we've talked, it's Phyllis. Mason is Barbara Peters, and she said that she has a friend who knows history who is helping her. So she has started. Mount Vernon is Tammy. Providence, Mary is the contact with Sue Kovacs Schumann, right? And she was attended one of our, as a listener, one of our sessions and volunteered to help. And so she's working through Mary, and they're working on Providence. She also asked, and we said, try it. She has reached out to a professor at Nova, a history professor, to see if perhaps some of his students might like to take on a couple of the names to do research. I consider this as much a community outreach as research. I don't know. It depends what kind of, the level that they understand that they need to work on, but I think it's a good opportunity. And we often talk about trying to reach out to the younger generation on history. So that is through Mary. And then Springfield is Lynn and Jordan, which I've talked about, and they are doing their best. They split the last I heard, they had split the district in two as far as going through. These were initial sorts. So I sent them a note this morning, and we'll see where that goes. And then in Sully, it's Cheryl. And she has not, at this point, she's doing that herself. And Anne has Vienna in progress, and Clifton is complete. And so we've actually made, I think, good progress. So I'd like to hear from all of you, if you want to, whatever you want to share. And some of you, if you're working with any research partners, I don't know, Anne can give an update. I know she has the master list and has been in touch with some people. And so, Anne, do you want to start?
I had an interview. Does everybody remember Trish Stratt? She did she's connected with the Vale Schoolhouse, and she did that nice Navy neighborhood report for us that is on our website. Woo! And so I asked her if she was interested, and she had the funniest answer. It's like, no, I'm not interested in the Civil War. It's like, okay, all you can do is ask, right?
Yeah, well, cross that one off.
That was one of my easier assignments from Barbara. But I think it's still, I think it's hard to work with other people when it's kind of amorphous, because I don't know. Anyway, I haven't pinned down. Virginia Norton and I at UDC keep missing each other. She's game to work with us, but I don't know that, if her district is really, if her bailiwick is McLean, and she said that's what she knows the best, then really all she could do is call up Carol and say, did you get this? Did you get that?
Yeah, that would be fine. She's a good friend of mine.
And she's a good sport. I'm very impressed with her. Who else have I talked to? Greg's compatriots at the Bull Run Civil War Roundtable were very diplomatic in their response. And
which was negative, right?
No, they were very nice. He says, oh, I don't know how we could help you with this phase, but maybe our best thing is when you come up with your list, we can give you some we might have some insights into some of the names. Maybe we'll know better in some cases where they actually weren't named for Confederates, but just sound like it. That it could be an extra set of eyes on our report, maybe. Definitely not a no by any stretch.
Well, that's good.
He was nice about it. Yeah. And then we know Paul Gilbert. I think you announced that last time. Nova Parks. He's a Civil War person, and he likes the Civil War. Wrote that book, Lead Like a General, and he says he personally looked at the whole list, or had staff. It sounded like he did, but we don't know. And said, no, there's nothing that you'd be interested in. But it's not like he gave us a list and let us look at it.
However, Anne, Mary found 5 Northern Virginia markers, which she includes in her list.
Yeah. A total of 10.
A total of 10, I beg your pardon. A total of 10.
He may not even view that as a Nova Parks assets. They may be on his land, but they're not the name of his parks and his buildings.
I see.
So he may not even have a separate list of them.
A lot of them are on the WO&D trail.
Of course. Yeah. So.
And this is Carol. I'll call Virginia and talk to her. I owe her a call anyway.
I owe her a call
too.
Thank
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'll give her a call. Mm-hmm.
We had a really nice talk before my Steve's wedding, and then we haven't connected back again. But she was very, very supportive and funny and good natured about it.
Okay. Who else?
Uh-huh.
Mary, you're doing so many things. I've lost everybody. All I have now is Denise and myself.
Oh,
So, Mary, wherever you are, the white square Mary.
Oh, I'm here.
Okay.
Well, Braddock, I'm working on it, and it's going to be I don't want to say, how did I say? Anyway, some of it is going to be unusual in terms of family names, and besides Burke, there's a lot of old family names in the area, and there's a lot of opinions about, what should be included. So I will do my best on it, and I frankly haven't looked at subdivisions or anything like that. The markers have been my priority for
Right.
several weeks. So, okay, that's it.
Thank you. Okay. Greg?
Barbara and everyone, hi. So let me just start and say I found the instructions and the templates that Denise sent around very helpful, and
Good.
for all the supporting documents and access to those files was quite helpful. I think if Carol, as she reported before, has finished the street names in Drainsville, I finished all the other subdivision parks, all the other items that were on that list, and sent those to Denise. So I think we're in good shape from a Drainsville perspective, unless I missed something.
Okay. Is there a way that you could take the information that you wrote out and load it in digitally?
Well, I've already sent that back to Denise.
Yes, to Denise, so that she can, if it's loaded in digitally, then she can use it to transition into her report.
Yeah, so I've put the information back into all the Word templates she sent. The listings, I've sent that back. So she has those electronically.
Okay.
The half dozen templates I sent, I just had to fill out and send them back as a PDF file.
Okay.
So if there's a way to load that digitally, I'm not aware of it.
oh yeah, we have that one, Greg, there's that one called, it's a fillable PDF.
Well, there's a Word. It's in there. One of the templates is Word, and on a Word you can do that.
I know in Word. I didn't realize it was. Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The one I got, I thought was a PDF file, so I just hand wrote it out.
Yeah. Well,
and put it in.
you were ahead of everything, because the second she also put together a Word one. So Denise, if you don't mind, send Greg another a template in Word, and then he can transfer his information.
No, it's actually a fillable PDF. It's right in front of me. It's in our share file. It's blank template edited.pdf.
Okay, I was working from an earlier file then.
That's right. You're the one who's ahead of the game, Greg.
Yes. Well, yeah.
If I may, so yeah, the both the template in PDF and in Word are in that project administration documents in the share file.
Okay,
So
there is a Word.
Yep, there's both ways.
That's what you get for being first, Greg. You got to come.
Yeah, no, I'll redo it and send it into you. You won't get it till this weekend, Denise, but I'll resend it.
Great, thank you very much. That's good. Tammy.
I am not as far along as Greg. But I've gone through like civic associations, shopping centers, landmarks, and then the buildings. So, and my process has been that I went through those, and then I forwarded my completed things to Sally Lyons, Ann Barnes, and Glenn Fatzinger, just because I thought, take a look. If there are holes that I couldn't figure out, maybe they have additional information. When they've approved it, I'm sending it to Denise.
Good.
So
you haven't heard from them as yet?
Sally has come back, which actually Sally is a really good person to be replying, because for whatever reason, a lot of the things that have possible Confederate connections are in Lorton. I don't know why that would be, but that seems to be what I'm coming up with. So she's a good person. That's also the area that I don't know very well. So,
right.
But I'm finding a lot of commonality among the lists. So there's Holland Hall is a subdivision, it's a shopping center, it's, and then there are street names. And so once I have answered that question, I'm just cutting and pasting,
Yes.
that into all the different lists. So I'm leaving street names last, hoping that I've already done 9/10 of what's in there. But I liked Phyllis's suggestion that start with the ones that have a full name on there, because
Yes.
that's going to be the ones we can really prove.
Right.
I love that suggestion. So plugging along, and when I get done, I'll let you know, and then I'm happy to help out Phyllis or anybody else who needs it.
Great. Thank you very much.
I think that's a good model for any of us who have more than one history commission member too, because I can take Barbara's marked up one, I mark it up and update it, I send it to Elise, and then by then it's had 3 sets of eyes, so that's really good. And if we can find anybody else among our list of helpers who wants to, if we can find the same kind of several levels of eyes for each district, that'll help us all.
Right.
And that may be where some of these historians we know who didn't really want to work on the list, but they might just eyeball the list, which is also helpful because some people just know their neighborhood or their research so well.
Well, that's how, I think that's how Sue came. She listened and then
Yes.
she initiated the volunteer effort, which is very much appreciated. So
Yeah, that was great.
So, okay. And I have to go back, since I said the roundtable was negative. I know some of them were, and so I realized some were not. So, and that's what Greg said at the beginning. There's 2 factions in the group, and so some wanted to help and some decided that it would be best if they didn't. So understand. Did I cover? Phyllis has already explained where she is. Does that cover everybody? I think so. And we've done really well, because this time it is an hour and a half. We are improving in our time frame, right? Is there anything else, Denise or Chris? Yes.
I just wanted to chime in and say that Esther says that she's going to contact Cheryl to see how she can help with Sully.
Oh, good. Oh,
Great.
good. Okay.
Thank you, Esther.
Anything else?
Just one question. We to the Historical Society, we forwarded that outreach for the public to submit submissions. Just curious, has anybody from the public contributed anything at all?
Oh.
The McLean Historical Society, hello, Carol's president.
Yes.
We have contributed, and right.
But the Fairfax, there was some follow-up with some people with the Historical Society. Oh, like Betty Busey wrote us. She got that from the Historical Society, Chris. And some other names. Betty didn't. She'll look at the list and help, but I don't think she wants to sit down and do the research. But that was good outreach, because the more, in fact, I mean, we may have said this before, because I'm completely losing track of what's gone before. But back in one of our conversations with supervisors Palchik and Alcorn, the idea of crowdsourcing eventually was raised, and making it like a real county-wide effort at some point. Not now. We're doing the basic beginnings. But there was an idea of kind of, I wonder what that would be like. But it's the idea of putting it out there and saying, if anybody else has any insights, let us know.
I want to address this comes to the point of when any of us receives a negative communication, it's very important that we share it with Denise if she is not copied on it to begin with. And it's part of the public response. And so we need to be able to keep a record of them. What makes me think of this is that Chris's outreach Suzanne Levy sent it on, bless her, and it went to her whole list of people. And so we had a very impassioned, it came to Suzanne, it came to Denise, and it came to you, Chris, and
Me?
anyway, it came, I got it, and it is from a woman who lives in New Hampshire.
New Hampshire? Yeah.
And so I spent a fair amount of time, a lot of time, trying to craft an appropriate and diplomatic response to her, which I sent. And then she responded again to me. And so what I did yesterday, diplomatically, is to give her the board chairman McKay's email address and the address of the government center, because she is still very distressed. And I had explained that, I used the word clerks when I said we're clerks. And so I felt that the thing was to say that if you still would care to share more of your perspective, then this is where you go. So, but it's important that we collect that part as well, and share, and make sure that Denise has them. Just, I don't know if she will be asked, but she needs to be aware, because she's the connection to.
I think good or bad, all those
No,
glowing,
absolutely. I haven't had any
glowing
good.
emails that we get saying what a fabulous project this is.
I'm waiting for one.
Well, actually, Barbara, I think the person from Cheryl Rapetti's district wrote us, the person who
That's
found
right, the very early on, that's right. Very
I
early
was
on.
very encouraged by
She was, yes, a young teacher, and she was, she's the one that brought to the fore Confederacy Ridge. She was going to have a petition to change it, and so, yes, okay. Anything else? We if we were going to do these on two-week cycle, 2 weeks from today is the big History Commission meeting, and that's just too much to do. Denise,
Yeah,
I agree.
sorry.
It's just too much to do this and then move right into that. So we need to have a date for the next gathering of us.
Barbara, I'm sorry. I
Yes.
don't know that you can see, but Greg is raising his hand.
I'm sorry, Greg didn't see you.
Squares.
So
Apologies.
one more tremendous resource I found, I don't know if you can see this, but there's a brand new book about Burke.
Oh,
Yes.
Tremendous historical research effort, great production. I'm loving reading it. Could be very helpful to you in the Burke and related districts. And I was happy to see some relatives in here. So
good.
Thanks to Mary and Chris. You know who you are.
Thank you,
Well
Greg.
done.
I'm sorry I didn't see. Thank you. That's great. Yes, I have on my shelf are the Netherton book, the book for 1760, Union Mills. I have all of the, not all, but many of the early historic publications that came out of the county. And, I'm not sure that everyone is aware of them, because the program had to end when the remaining staff from what used to be the OCP came to the Park Authority and came to my desk. So I have these just because they were part of my personal library. Mary, you had something to say.
Yes, when we were talking about newspapers, I do have a subscription to newspapers.com, which is beyond what Library of Congress has. And so if anybody wants, it's not every newspaper in the area, but there's a lot of newspapers that are covered, and like
good.
little hometowns and stuff like that. I just also wanted to ask Denise if she had any more details on September 15th when they're talking about the Marr Monument.
4:30.
Yes, no, I know further details. I know that the ad was published in the Washington Times on Friday.
Okay.
Why do they pick the Washington Times?
I don't know. The Washington Times seems to cover everybody, though. If you look at the ads, they have every public hearing. I don't know.
No, the Washington Post has all those trustee hearings and stuff. It is a lot more the newspaper of record than the Washington Times will ever be.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a disgrace, actually. It's just a disgrace. There's no
Well-
excuse for that. And I should write to my supervisor.
Well, for those of us who did not see it, I know you said it was going to be virtual. Is it in-house also?
It will be published, but there was a different publication schedule for this particular hearing. So it had to be published 30 days in advance, which is why it went out on August 14th to the Washington Times. But it will be published on the Board of Supervisors and on the regular schedule,
I was,
which is
And
That's what I was
you said 1:30?
4:30.
4:30, okay. All right.
do you know if the county picked the times, or do they just, does the public information office just send them out and whoever takes them, takes them?
Oh, I think
Money. You
I
have to
think
be
the
very
county-
intentional.
Yeah, no, I think I think the Washington Times is where the county publishes all of their public hearings.
Okay. Well, I
The stupidest thing I ever heard.
But Denise, do we know why it's not, at least as of yesterday, it was not on the county website?
Because it was only published 30 days in advance because it's on an irregular schedule, an atypical schedule. It's not typical.
But, okay, no, I just don't understand then. Because there are other notices are published further in advance, I thought, but.
Then 30 days? Oh, not that I'm aware of, Craig. I think typically it's maybe 2 weeks in advance of the board meeting.
Okay.
I think that's what it is typically.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mary?
One more question for Denise. When I'm starting to list the union, am I doing a template for each of these markers, or it's appropriate to put their title and district and location? I mean, how much detail? Do you want the same detail that I did for the other markers? If I start listing the union.
So with the template for the markers, Mary, as you know, it was modified, so you don't have to include as much information. But if we could get,
I'm including all the text and everything. That takes a while. But anyway, go ahead. So
I think we landed on the text wasn't included, right?
No, the text summaries are.
Summaries, okay, right.
Yeah.
But yes, I think to be balanced, which is what the supervisors had asked for, I think that the same information that was included for the Confederate markers needs to be included for the Union markers in order for the report to be a balanced report of both.
So I will be doing those separately. Is that okay? I mean, I'm not going to try to do them in alphabetical order or anything like that with what I already have given you.
No, do them separately. Do them. I'm interjecting here, but I would say they'd be separate because they're easier to. Is that all right, Denise? It's just a separate listing of the unions markers.
Yeah, I think if you could just imitate what you did for the Confederate markers, that would be sufficient.
And do you want these in pieces, or, I mean, I know I've given you all the Confederate markers. So do you want me to do all the street names for Braddock and the subdivisions, et cetera, or would you rather get street names and then another, section, or how do you want it presented to you?
I think that whenever anything is completed, it should be sent to me.
Okay.
So I can get a jump on getting a format together for how it's going to be presented.
Okay.
Right now, I'm just now kind of sketching it out, what I think that the report should look like. So as soon as some information starts heading my direction, and I start to get sort of a massing, then I'll start to get an idea of what it's going to look like for presentation.
That's one more thing I had neglected to say is when you can, send them in, because we can't wait and everybody sends them in on the 7th is the absolutely last date. But when you are finished, send it forward.
And we send it to Denise, not put it in the share file.
No, send it to Denise correctly. Is that right?
I've tried to make the share file so you can't upload things to it, but but if you find that you can, please don't. Just send the tape.
Okay.
I'll
Plain
give her
old
note.
email.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, email, just as an email attachment, that would be great. Thank you.
Mary has done, because the markers are countywide, and she has, I even have a separate folder, Mary marker file 1, 2, 3, 4, and today I got 5, which is, I think this is worth a minute to explain, Mary. This is explain about the disappeared marker and what we did. You're muted.
Here we go.
Okay.
In 1903, John McNally contacted the Board of Supervisors wanting to put up a marker to commemorate Sangster Station battle, with the emphasis of recognizing both sides. It was going to be put on the poorhouse property, so that's why he was writing the Board of Supervisors. I found it fascinating. If you're into cemeteries, it was a zinc marker, which is very rare. They're blue metal with 4 panels on it, and the 4 panels had information quotes, but it also had a panel for Confederate losses and Union losses, so it was very balanced. And those panels disappeared, and they were reunited with Lee Hubbard and some other people in the 60s, and they are now currently on the walls in Fairfax Station Railroad Museum on loan. The actual zinc marker is believed was in a lady's barn that burned down, and so they don't know what happened to it after that. But it's fascinating to see the details, and I quoted a portion of the letter that the man had written, that he wanted to make sure that this was representative of both sides, and that the information on the Sangster Station Civil War Trail sign says both Union and Confederates financially supported it.
Thank you. And the reason I brought this up, I was concerned because the plaques are now themselves are now in a museum, and that means they're part of a museum collection, and that is a separate entity. And so Denise and I had a long discussion about this, and I agree. What we're recognizing in the inventory is the marker, even though the memorial, really, even though it is no longer there, does not exist. It was something that was approved by the then Board of Supervisors to go on public land, and it was balanced. And so that is part of the story. And it's just a reference that the plaques are in the museum. So, and the interesting thing is that the entire story is on a Civil War marker that's right there in Clifton. And if you all recall, during the History Commission meeting, Lynn received note from the Clifton Town Council while we were meeting, and she read there are no streets, and she said, and there's just one marker, but it doesn't matter. It's for both sides. This was the marker. And so Mary found it, we wrote it up. And so it's interesting when the Board of Supervisors are looking at things to see that at one point they approved. And I also pointed out, knowing the history of Ox Hill, that the Ox Hill obelisks, as finally designed, are also balanced, and one for the blue and one for the gray. And nothing's happened with them, but it's just an interesting little parallel there. So anyway, that's what. Is anything else from anyone? If not, anyone have suggestion? Denise, do you have any suggestions for a next meeting? I think they're important. Let me look at my.
Yes, you were just talking.
How many weeks have we got till this is due?
About
6.
about
2,
6.
3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Yep.
Not
It's
too
due the
many.
7th.
Denise, I'm gonna, this is, the commission is on the 2nd, and so if we meet on the next Wednesday, it's the 9th, that's 3 weeks away. That may be sufficient, I don't know. I mean, we are again, we're in the middle here.
Right. So the other option would be to hold it 2 weeks after the commission meeting, which is exactly what we did with this meeting. So
Okay.
it's exactly between the two
That
commission.
would be that's the 16th, correct?
My only reservation on that, and I don't really care because I've got an HVI meeting the night of the 14th, but we do this at 2 o'clock. And HVI just runs itself. But so I feel like we're getting so close to it that 3 weeks feels kind of far. If we did it the 14th, we could do it again on the 28th, the week before it's due, and just see if anybody's got problems. But maybe we'll know. Barbara's got her finger on the pulse of all of us, so maybe
I'm trying.
so maybe we don't need it. I can go either way, whatever you guys want.
Gee, I would think we should meet the Monday before the Wednesday of the History Commission meeting. I guess that's more meetings.
Well, that would be the 31st.
No, the
I don't
5th.
know. Greg is available only Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, correct, Greg?
Sorry, it just depends on the date.
I see, understand, okay.
So we're talking, Carol, were you talking about the 5th?
The 31st of September.
Oh, I'm in October. Okay.
Denise, your call,
Oh,
because
yeah.
you have so many other things going on, and Chris and Liz.
Right. So I'm here. I'm support. That's my role. I'm support. So it's whatever you all decide. When do you feel like you need to meet?
Well, let me ask you this, like, the History Commission meeting on the 2nd, aside from this, do we have anything else that's going to take up a lot of time? Because I felt like we used the last History Commission meeting very productively. I thought it was almost, an equivalent to this.
I agree.
So if we don't have anything else big on the agenda for that, I think that sort of serves as our meeting.
What do we have? We should have the budget, but that never takes any time for some reason.
Well, we do have, I don't know what the deadline is for the National Trust. That just requires people to read it and vote. And I've lost track. It's on my
That's due
desktop.
on the 23rd, isn't it?
I don't know.
That's due before. The Bois Doré. That's due I wrote down the 23rd of August.
I don't know. I don't have my minutes of the meeting, so I can't tell you.
Is that what you mean, the National Register nomination, Anne? Is that what you were referring to? Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I do think it was the end of, here, let me flip to the calendar. Yes, because Laura wants to compile it and get it back to the state of Virginia by that week.
So our comments are due by Sunday? Did I write that down, sort of, right?
I think if you got them to me by Monday, that would be sufficient.
24th. I might have written it in a day before just to get a jump on it.
Okay.
All right, so that's a good point, Tammy. If nothing else, we can.
Everyone, if everyone, you all are being really great about communicating with me and with Denise, and so Anne will urge all of the I love saying the cow. I just think it's funny. That they should make sure that they contact us. Then and Anne is copied on all of it. Then maybe we're good and just hold until that would be the 9th. Is that correct?
2 weeks from today. 2 weeks from today is our meeting. 3 weeks from today is the 9th. Is that right?
Yes.
And then
with the understanding that most of this meeting on the 2nd will be dealing with this. There's really no time for anything else.
That's really good.
Is that all right, Denise? Is it okay with everybody else?
Works for me.
All right, we're good. Okay, the next meeting will be on September 9th. I don't know what happened to the summer. I don't know what happened to 2020, but here we are, right? Thank you all so much. Chris, thank you and Liz for coming.
Thank you.
Of course, Denise, and thank you all. I think we're doing well. So I feel we're making progress and am encouraged. So now I have to figure out
That will be at 2 o'clock. The meeting will be at 2
Yes,
o'clock.
ma'am, 2 o'clock, and I'll send out a note. Yes, ma'am. September 9th at 2.
Thank
Okay,
you, Barbara, for all the work you're putting into this.
well,
All the sleepless nights, I know.
that's just kind of crazy. Some nights are good and some nights aren't. Right now, this is funny. I am obviously IT challenged. And so when I did my share file, I was very excited. I got my password. I got it all set. When I opened it, I only had one. So obviously it wasn't a complete download.
Oh,
So
no.
I haven't had time to look at it. Denise said, try it this way, and I haven't had time to do that. So that's what I'm doing next. So that I can get in there. But
Anybody who hasn't done it, get it started, because it is, as you can hear, it's a wealth of information.
of course. So thank you all very much. Take
Thanks,
care.
everyone.
The meeting is adjourned. Okay, bye.
Everybody, bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.